But first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me down here. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I attended your first tea party that you had downtown at the courthouse, and I was really inspired. And to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been in the conservative movement for a long time, ever since back around 1977, 78, 79. I started studying the Constitution, learning more about the United States of America, because I grew up in a very, well, they were a conservative home, but their voting and who they voted for didn't match our conservative values, and it confused me as a kid. And I was always taught that you got to vote Democrat because the Democrats are you got to vote for. And I couldn't figure that one out either. So as I began to go through life and I grew a little older in my teens and then into my early 20s, it just didn't gel. So I became an outcast in my family because I decided that, hey, I'm going to study and I'm going to learn and I'm going to figure out just exactly what it is and who it is I believe in, not only biblically, but also politically, because it was very important, because the biblical principles that I learned in the home didn't match how they voted and who they voted for. And so that caused a little friction, but it freed my heart and it freed my soul, because I knew that if I loved God and I wanted to obey God, I also needed to make sure that I put leaders in positions that loved God, obeyed God, and loved this country. So as time went on, I began to have friction with the family, with friends, because you just can't do that. And I had friends of mine, a friend of mine who was a Secret Service agent, and he says, Emery, he says, I'm going to cap everything off for you. He said, you got a birthday coming up. He says, you want to go to Washington, D.C., I'll get you introduced to Ronald Reagan. And I said, boy, that would be an honor. And because I was still in my learning process, and lo and behold, what I did was I took my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, because they were staunch, hard, liberal Democrats. And I said, I'm going to take you guys to Washington, D.C. They'd never been before. And my father-in-law had cancer. He was diagnosed that he wasn't going to live about 30 days or so after, or maybe 60 days. So I decided in my heart that I would take him, and maybe by taking him to see Ronald Reagan, that it would move his heart before he died and maybe change him. He could change the kids and help me along in my battle with trying to win the liberals over to the cause of conservatism. So I took them to Washington, D.C. It made his day, but it didn't change him. But at least I fulfilled a dream for him before he died. But he did tell me, before he did die, that he was really appreciated because he really enjoyed the words that Ronald Reagan had said. He mentioned conservative values, but he never did change. So you win some, you lose some, is the point of what I'm trying to say here. And we can't win everybody. There are a lot of liberals out there, but there are a lot of people who are willing to listen also. And all we have to do is, like Paul said in the Bible, some people water, some people plant, but God gives the increase. So we have to continue to pound away and pound away and pound away. It may seem like they're not hearing. It may seem like it's not being grasped in their heart and soul, but you never know. So the second thing I'll do before I get started with my speech is I'll tell you a little bit about how I got started in the Tea Party movement. I was, for a long time, throughout the last 10 or 12 years, I've been involved in, since I was a self-proclaimed conservative and a little bit of an outcast, I had to have things to do. I decided I would throw honor and appreciation events for our soldiers and for our military people and veterans. And I've been doing that for the last probably, like I said, about 12 years. And eventually, that led me into a relationship with the Glenn Beck, and I did the Rally for America up in Auburn. What we did was, I'm an amateur radio operator, so they needed a way to get the word out around the world while those rallies were going on, and I told them that I could have my buddies who were ham radio operators set up in their homes, their backyards. Some of us come up to Auburn and go to other events, and we would allow soldiers on military bases to hear the events, talk to the events, and then people could come and talk to troops live over ham radio. They really liked the idea. It was a boom down in Auburn, so he took me on the national tour to do ham radio for that. After that was over with, the soldiers were still being deployed. Many families couldn't afford to make phone calls to their loved ones. So I decided to take it upon myself to throw an event every Memorial Day for the troops and do the same thing. It grew, became nationwide, and we had soldiers, military amateur radio clubs, civilian amateur radio clubs that followed the event every year. Then we started doing it also in conjunction with the Golden Corral for their military appreciation meal. We have amateur radio operators sit outside Golden Corrals with their amateur radio gear and let the people talk to the veterans and tell them that they thank them and talk to the soldiers. So that worked very well. And during one of the years, I think it was the 4th or 5th year, the word got out to Washington, D.C. that this was going on, and I got invited to the White House to have breakfast with President Bush. And that was quite an honor because I wanted to get more and more of the word out about what we were doing so that our troops and our military members and their families could hear more from the people about how much we appreciated what they did, because the media was telling them that we didn't care. The media was telling them all the bad news, too. They couldn't hear what was actually going on back here in the States, and they wanted to hear some voices. So that's how I got started, and that's some of the things that I've done to advance the cause of conservatism and to show appreciation for my love for this country and for other people to express their love for the troops and for our country. So I moved on from that because I wanted to do more. And when the famous rant was made by Rick Santelli about what was going on in America and how they were spending money, he said, we ought to have an old-fashioned tea party. So I said, wow, man, that's a good idea. So I was hoping and hoping and hoping that something would happen in Fort Wayne. Nothing ever happened. It was March. Then it got to be April. And I'm going, wow, we only got 15 days, and Fort Wayne's not going to have a tea party. So I was scheduled to go on vacation the following week, and I said, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And if nobody does it, I said, well, I talked to my wife. I said, I guess I'll do it. And she said, you got to be crazy. She said, who in the world is going to come to a tea party event? First of all, you only got about 12 days, maybe 13 days to plan it. And she said, secondly, she said, you know how this mayor is in this city and how this city is. She said, they probably won't even give you a place to have it. And she says, and then thirdly, and the biggest strike against it, she said, you're black. You know, who's going to listen to you and come to a tea party event sponsored by a black guy? So I said, I'm not worried about all that. I said, an American is an American. Amen. We all bleed. Thank you. We all bleed red, white, and blue. We all love the country, and that's my purpose, and that's my dream. So I'll make this short so I can get into my speech. But what I ended up doing was I went downtown, what I called downtown first, and I asked our county commissioners, I said, I'd like to use the courthouse to throw a tea party on the 15th. And they said, well, that's booked. We got something going on down there. I said, well, we'll do it that Saturday, which was the 17th. And I said, can I use it, and what process do I have to go through to use the property? The county commission said, oh, no problem at all. This is the county. You know, it's your land, it's your court.